Nice. Well, welcome to this committee. It's nice to have you.
Thank you.
So we were just getting started. You haven't missed anything. And we'll start with this boring bit. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, GLC 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Easthampton Ranked Choice Voting Ad Hoc Committee is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to view this meeting while in progress may do so by connecting via Zoom as described on the meeting agenda. Shout out to that last sentence, which is totally, you know, a paradox of some kind. Okay. Guys, this is going to be a really fun meeting. If you like weeds, there's going to be some really good weeds in this meeting. Public speak, which has happened a little, but is not going to happen tonight because we don't have any members of the public. Let's start with, well, not necessarily approve, but talk about approving minutes from last, done by Sarah. Very beautiful minutes. Did everyone get a chance to look at those?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye. I will abstain because I wasn't here.
Great. Anyone opposed? Nope. Motion passes. Cool. Committee secretary position rotation. So Jackie, just to bring you up to speed on this, we do not have a permanent secretary role. We did for a little while, or did we ever? I don't remember. Anyway, we've been rotating to do the minutes. So
I'll do it. I volunteered last time, so.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Barbara. Barbara will do the minutes for this meeting. Jackie, if you want to be a secretary, the job is open and yours for the taking. Training report. Cool. So I believe this got sent to everybody. Where the hell is this?
So who ended up going to that?
Me, Barbara, Tom was there for half of it. And the people present was Jeff from LHS, two other LHS employees who basically were just there to move stuff around and do manual labor. Susan, the new clerk of Amherst. Yep. And Michelle, the elections secretary of Secretary of State's office elections manager. So I can't find that thing I sent out, but I sent it out and it was kind of a report of everything we did.
Do you want me to re-forward it to you, Dan?
Well, I mean, I have it. It's in my email. Let me just pull it up. Dun, dun, dun. There we go. Okay. So this was pretty long. I don't need to go over the entire thing that I wrote. Some of this is just interesting. Jackie, I hope you got a copy of this forwarded to you. I think you may have.
I don't even remember that I got it, but I must have. Do you have it, Dan? I mean, your co-host.
I have it. Oh, sorry.
I do. Yeah, and it did get sent to you, so you should have a copy in your email. But
I'm sure it did.
I'm not going to screen share this because there will be plenty to screen share.
Okay.
But the big takeaways here, the really big news that I didn't find out really until the day of is that we are going to have image scanning turned on our tabulators, on our ICPs. So these machines have always been capable of storing ballot images when you scan the thing through, but that has always been turned off due to state law. However, because we're doing RCV, and because the elections office, whatever, Secretary of State, has determined that there's no feasible way, really. I mean, you can do it, but it's totally labor intensive. But because there's no feasible way of doing write-in reconciliation without doing these ballot images, we essentially have permission to turn it on and to do it that way, which is super, super great news. It makes write-in resolution a lovely software-assisted process that we witnessed, and it's very nice. And we can just sit there and go through them ballot image by ballot image, and the software has all kinds of recognition stuff built in, but we'll mostly just be using the adjudication module of the software to resolve write-ins and to resolve invalid write-ins as well. So very good news, very cool. I'm just going through there's only 4 or 5 big takeaways from here. Skipped rankings may present a new issue. So we had this issue where the machines were throwing a sort of prompt up if someone had stopped ranking, and I'll distinguish stopped versus skipped. Skipped is 1, 2, 4, 5. Stopped is 1, 2, 3. Didn't pick 4 or 5, right? So it appeared that the machines were prompting on if somebody stopped, which we do not want them to do, but they were prompting as they should on a skipped one. So we have to do a little more looking into this. Jeff, now in his most recent follow-up to me, seems to think that there is a way to distinguish between stopped and skipped, which I hope that is true.
Well, yeah, because everything we've heard up until now is, we spent a lot of time figuring this out, right? Like how we wanted to.
This is not so much for tabulation as much as it is for the settings of the scanner at the polls, because we don't want them to prompt if someone just does 1, 2, 3.
All right, yeah, so this is for a poll worker to help.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
Thank you.
What's happening with the machines is that they've become, just the ballot style itself is making it even slower than it has been in the past. And these are pretty slow machines anyway. And if we had to, if it prompts every single person who doesn't rank all of them, it's just going to be ridiculous. So if it can't be done, then it's going to have to be turned off because it's going to be way too slow.
Yeah, Barbara and I were in total agreement that if there isn't a way of having it not prompt on stopped rankings, it's better to not prompt on skipped rankings than to prompt on everything. So we'll get a little more clarification. The little bit follow-up I got from Jeff seemed to be positive in that area, in that it can somehow distinguish between stopped and skipped. So that's good.
That prompt setting, though, the prompt setting would be turned off just for those situations, right? Not all the prompts.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yep. The settings for prompting is very granular, including one category that we have yet to determine how it works. But it's not a big deal. It involves duplicate rankings, and there's 2 categories. There's inconsistent and duplicate, and they both kind of seem to be the same thing. Anyway, it's pretty granular. Yeah. A cool takeaway is we will probably not, at least in terms of legal reasons, need to perform any hand tallying on election night at the polls. Whether we still do for various reasons or not is a little bit up in the air, but doing write-in tallying and doing hand count tallying is going to be a day 2 process, which is how Cambridge does it, and we have the thumbs up from our elections official in the state to do it, how they do it. We're going to have to talk about adjudication in the software and also for hand counts. That's going to be a big part of today's meeting, and I'm going to try and keep it as painless as possible. And hopefully I've already done a lot of the writing that needs to happen there. And then that's all the big highlights and takeaways. I had a bunch of questions for LHS, and he did answer a fair amount of them. I'm not going to get into those weeds right away unless anybody has specific questions about those. But so regarding, is there any comment, discussion, questions about the event that happened?
I do. Barbara, how did you feel about it all after actually doing it?
I felt better. One thing that I'm really thrilled about is that I hadn't really thought about before is that this software is going to be able to be used, like for all elections. And what that means is at the end of the night, I'm just going to be able to put the cards into the, feed it into the laptop and get the results. And there's the capability of making some really nice reports. And so it's not like this is just going to be able to be used for the ranked choice voting. I mean, LHS will have to set it up according to the ballot that we're using. But I mean, that's my most exciting part of the whole thing. I mean, I do want to say that I hope that Jeff is going to come through with some pretty clear instructions about exactly how, what the steps are going to be. And I think he was saying that he was going to do that. But as long as everything feeds in okay, I think it'll be fine. And the day 2 process is for our elections, is going to be a really helpful. Yeah, the less that we really have to do at the polls as far as deciding stuff, the better. So after talking with Cambridge and reading up on other places that do it, I think it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Cool,
I also,
And that really will only be like write-ins and looking at ballots that the machine was not able to read. And we can talk about how that process, I'll let Dan explain that a little bit.
if I also remember correctly, Jeff said that this first run through, LHS would send someone down.
Yes, there's going to be somebody there that whole day. Probably Rod. He was the tall, skinny guy with the glasses. Yeah, which is very comforting.
Mm.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. That'll be great to have a backup person. And he said they would be there for our day 2 as well. So.
Oh, they did? I don't remember that.
I'm 90% sure Jeff said.
Yeah.
That.
I guess I don't know if we really need that, but if they want to give it to us, I'm fine with it.
I mean, we're going to be doing the whole adjudication software thing for the first time then. So it'll be nice to have someone there. Yeah. We also have our software. We have the laptop. Barbara, I have the passwords now. Okay. It took a little while for him to get them to me.
Yep.
I hesitate. I almost forwarded them to you, and then I hesitated because I know your email is like
when you're ready to drop it off. And I didn't mean to have that. I needed it right away. I just don't want to have it. You can just write it down and put it with the.
Okay, I'll do that.
You can just screen share it here.
Yeah, that's not going to be public for everybody. Yeah. I almost emailed it to you, and then I realized that your email is potentially public record, and maybe we don't want the password.
Just write it down and put it inside.
Yeah. So yeah, we got that. Seems to be working. All right. So the 3 topics on here to cover everything, it's really going to be one topic because they're all related. The ordinance, write-in resolution, and ballot duplication. So all of this is any changes here are me unilaterally trying to preemptively do work that the committee needs to do and approve. So any of this can be changed. I added a bunch of stuff. I changed very, very little. I'm going to screen share the ordinance document, and going through it, we will talk about the changes and most notably the additions I made, and whether this is the appropriate place for them to be, how much is appropriate to be here, and how much can be left up to discretion or to internal procedures that aren't part of an ordinance or not. But I have put all of that kind of stuff, had that stuff in mind while writing this stuff. But it's still certainly open to discussion and input from you guys. So let me get the screen share of this guy. Share. Okay. Can everybody see this that says ranked choice voting? Yes? Mm-hmm. Good? Yep. Okay, cool. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to start with the little stuff here. We had in section 4, all ballots with write-in votes will be counted and recorded as cast vote records at the polls. And I just deleted that because it's going to be superseded by all the other stuff. Everyone cool with that?
Yep.
Because of the second day process coming in.
Correct. Yep.
There will be something on the tape that says how many write-ins, but that number always changes. I mean, even now it changes. But if somebody looks at the tape that we run that night, there will be a number for write-ins.
Yep.
Just so.
And in addition, what I learned and I hadn't seen in the past is we get a tape receipt with all of the write-in images of all the little write-ins.
Right.
For every race.
Yeah, that won't be posted on in the hallway though.
No. I mean, even in a small election, it'll probably be too long.
Yeah.
So
no, that's ridiculous.
All the Mickey Mouses and stuff. Okay, so this was the only real edit that I made right here. It says, if no candidate receives a majority of the first choice votes cast for that contest, based on the election returns provided by the polling locations. I wanted to get rid of this based on the polling location thing, because it's like,
that's how
through the second day process, it could result in somebody having a majority or not. And we don't want to say, oh, we're only doing an instant runoff based on
that night returns. Yeah,
exactly.
That's needed.
So I think we should get rid of that if that's cool with everybody. So it basically just looks like this. First choice votes with that contest and instant runoff. Yeah. Easy. All right. So these two little sections that I added to section 4 tabulation, that basically are little stubs for. I'm thinking of this day 2 process as two things, because it is kind of two separate things, and they have to be done one before the other, right? We have the hand count. So this is ballots that cannot be read by the machine. Probably, again, it'll mostly be absentee ballots that are marked incorrectly with X's or squiggles or things, but also any ballots that just, a machine dies and it goes into the bin, like anything that can't be machine read. Goes through a certain first process. And then the second process is resolving all the write-ins. And the reason that these happen in the order that they happen is because there could be unreadable ballots that have write-ins on them. And there's no point in doing the write-ins first and then doing all the hand counts and being like, oh, some of these hand counts have write-ins, so we have to go back and resolve those write-ins. Should just do it one and then the other. So section E here says, adjudication of ballots not accepted by the voting equipment on election day may take place the day following the election through a process established by the city clerk in compliance with this ordinance. The adjudication process must be open to the public. Very simple. This is based on language that Barbara gave me, which I thought was great, and I made a couple little changes to it because I wanted to put, because I did add more stuff about both of these processes to the ordinance lower down. Now, as a committee, if we decide, oh, this ordinance isn't the place for that stuff, then we can take it out and have it be in a separate document or something like that. But if it is in the ordinance, then that's why I added the in compliance with this ordinance stuff there. And then we can talk about these together, but F, because it's very, very similar. Resolution of ballots with write-in votes may take place the day following the election through a process established by the city clerk in compliance with this ordinance. The write-in resolution process must be open to the public. So those are those. good spot for them? Wording, anything?
I think it looks good overall. I'm wondering. I know we always get hung up on may, shall, will.
Yep.
But do we want to say may take place? Or
Well,
do we
I think
wanna
I think it was May because it could be the same day. But
okay.
it's just
Yeah, I think saying shall, like, what if something happened, you know? What if, I think may just kind of gives it a, you know,
Yeah. No biggie.
yeah.
I like that.
Cool.
Snowstorm, or, you know, who knows, a flood, or,
Global pandemic.
yeah, so.
Cool. Okay. So then really the other two things on here are the big ones, which are these two things. So I added two sections. I did renumber the sections following them, but that's not a big markup thing. But so the new section 5 is adjudication of unreadable ballots, ballot duplication. And this is no, it's not quite a page, but the first two things here are kind of informational, but I think pretty necessary to have. So and this is also based on some great information that Barbara found and compiled from several different sources about ballot duplication, which is a widespread process in elections.
A not made up thing.
Not a made-up thing, correct, yeah. So the purpose of the ballot duplication process is to ensure that any ballots that were unable to be read by the voting equipment are properly tabulated according to the intent of the voter. For example, some ballots may be received damaged or improperly marked. During this process, the original ballot is supplemented with a new ballot that the voting equipment can read. Duplicated ballots are still only counted once. So that's just like your basic little, what the hell is this? Why are we doing it? Makes sense.
I have a slight qualm about improperly marked because, you know, I'm always, you know how I am about precise language and
Yeah, totally.
worrying that people are going to run off with it. I wonder if there's a way we can make it clear that it's like making an X through the bubble rather than like, we didn't like the way you voted and we're going to remark it. Because I can see, I mean, it's just like a conspiracy theory world.
Yeah,
Yep,
you could say something about the machine being unable to read, or I don't
Well,
know.
it says that we're
unable to be read voting.
unable to be read by the voting equipment.
Maybe you should just take that all out, that for example line.
I think it's helpful. Let me think on it a little bit, see where it goes.
Okay.
You could say marked in an invalid way. Just like
Unreadable way or unscannable way. I don't know, something like that.
Marked in
Unscannable.
a way that the ballot machine could not read.
Yeah.
It just said that though.
Yeah, no,
First
I
sentence.
feel like given the context of the first sentence, I'm not
Okay.
as nervous as I sometimes would be about that language. But I mean, you're right that we need to be cautious
Well, I'll think on it, and if something leaks out, I will mention it.
the machine would kick it back in those instances anyway, right?
Well, these ones that they might have been received in the mail.
Oh,
If we can catch it at the polls, the person can revote it.
yeah. Duh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, but if we get it as an absentee, or if we go to by mail ballots or something, you know, the person isn't there.
Yeah.
So that's why, you know, they can't revote. Yeah.
All right, so B, during the duplication process, any ballot issues, overvotes, skipped rankings, etc., should not be changed or corrected. The goal of this process is to represent the original ballot as closely as possible while allowing it to be machine readable. Write-in votes should be transferred verbatim. However, if the voter did not place a mark next to their write-in vote and their intent is clear, a mark may be added on the duplicate.
Okay, so yeah, this section B does allay some of my perhaps paranoid concerns about section A.
And the Secretary of State's office is very, very, very clear about there does not need to be a mark next to a write-in. However, if someone puts a mark if someone ranks other candidates and doesn't put a mark next to a write-in, there's no way of knowing their intent. But if somebody only puts a write-in and there's no mark next to it,
then
then we can add a mark. Yeah.
I'm not sure I like the words "as closely as possible," is to represent the ballot as closely as possible. Because that,
Yeah.
there's something about that wording that I don't really think.
The goal of the process is to recreate the original ballot.
How about the goal of this process is to represent the ballot exactly,
Right.
the original ballot exactly, while allowing.
You don't even need the word exactly.
Okay.
The goal
Yeah.
of this process is to represent the original ballot while allowing it to be machine readable.
Or you could even add represent the original ballot's intent or voters' intent. But that, yeah, it starts to get hairy.
Is the word represent the right word here? Yeah, maybe it is. Never mind.
Recreate.
Yeah.
The goal of this process is to recreate the original ballot while allowing it to be.
Yeah, because represent seems to allow some room for interpretation. Like your representative doesn't do the exact thing you tell them to, right? They,
Yep.
proceed with your
Or
mandate.
replicate, maybe.
Oh, replicate. That's nice.
Replicate. That's a good.
Love it.
Yep.
Yep.
Nice.
That's the word.
That's
Yep.
better.
Yep.
How about to allow it to be machine, so it is machine readable
Yeah, to allow it.
or something like that.
Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. That's a lot better. Okay. So then here is something that we need to talk about and decide what it is. The duplication process must be performed by a committee consisting of who? Who does this? So some of the information Barbara found is 2 election judges. Cambridge does this. It is their commissioners of elections.
Yeah, they use their board of registrars. So
Board of
like Jackie
registrars.
would be on the, yeah,
So we could have this be, we have 3 members, right? Or are there more?
right. I have a little issue with that because if there was ever a recount, they're going to be the judges. So I almost think it should be a little loose. I don't think, I almost would not like to see it like really defined in here. Like who's
A
going to do it.
committee designated by, I don't know.
Clerk.
Yeah, like
Clerk, the mayor, or somebody.
maybe you could say how many people or something like that. But I it could be that we have some election, a warden or, myself and my sister, it sounds like looking at other places that it really doesn't, it can just be some election workers,
Okay.
So then we say designated by the city clerk, and then
Yeah.
And how many people do we want? Do we want 3?
I would say an odd number greater than 1.
Yeah. Well, what did Cambridge had 3?
Cambridge has 4.
Which I think,
oh, that's a bad number. That's wrong.
yeah, it should be an odd number.
I agree. I asked her about that a few times and she was kind of like, oh.
That's just asking for a fight.
I know, right? Well, one should certainly hope that this committee does not have a lot of split votes.
Right. And I don't even think I would call it a committee because it's not a committee.
Okay.
I think you
It's,
call it an ad hoc committee.
A panel.
Because it could be not, I don't want to have to, I think it should be flexible on.
If we say committee, are we going to have to get them like officially appointed?
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Panel might be the best
Panel.
word. Somebody said that.
Might have been me.
Yeah, you could say, in
3, 5? What do you guys think?
3.
I think 3. There's going to be more people there. There'll be people helping. But
Right, but these are
the
just
3 would be like the
votes.
judges, the
Yeah.
ones who,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, I like calling them judges
Yeah.
as
Designated by the city clerk.
Yeah, and so that would leave it open for, like, it could be a warden, and maybe one member of the Board of Registrars and, somebody else.
Now, one of the things that you found dictated that there be members of both
Oh, it has to be
political parties?
Different
or something?
political parties, yeah,
I
definitely.
mean, do we want to put that, or do we, we get to decide if we do
Well,
or
I mean,
not.
if it's the law, it's the law. We don't have to.
No, this
Not a
wasn't,
law.
it wasn't the law. This was just some other jurisdiction's ballot duplication.
You could say 3 election judges representing the major political parties or something with a,
Good. I'd be, since our municipal elections are non-partisan, I'd be inclined to leave it out
That's
entirely.
yeah,
It's worth mentioning that the majority of Easthampton voters are not registered to either political party.
Yep.
right.
Most.
Yeah, we don't have any parties, so I think you could leave it open as far as this goes.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the duplication process must be performed by a panel consisting of 3 election judges as designated by the city clerk. Ballot markings as described below may be performed by handwriting, printing, stamping, stickers, or any combination of these methods. The ballot duplication process must involve the following steps. So I kind of envisioned that the clerk's office or the election workers doing this or whatever would kind of come up with their own potentially more detailed procedure, or not. Maybe it's a little bit informal, but I felt like maybe the ordinance should specify the bare necessities that we're like, this definitely involves these things. And so that's what's listed here. Again, this is just stuff that I kind of made up based on the things Barbara found and talking to Cambridge, as like okay, this is kind of like the scaffolding of the bare minimum this process needs to include. So I'll read through this and then we'll talk about it. So the original ballot must be marked ORIG with red ink. The duplicate ballot must be marked DUP with red ink. The duplicate ballot and the original ballot must be assigned the same serial number, which must be written on both ballots with red ink. The serial number must be unique for the election and must start at 1 and increase sequentially.
I'm a little confused about that because if it has to start at 1, how is it going to be unique for each election?
As in, like a primary election, or sorry, like as in a 2022 election versus a 2026 election versus, you know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
for each election.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Is there a way to reword that so that makes
I would just
sense?
say each instead of the, and I don't know, that.
Oh, yeah.
To the election.
The serial number must be unique for each election. Yeah. Or maybe the serial numbers must be unique for each election.
Yeah, there you go.
Must start at 1 and increase sequentially. Yep. Because it's not per contest, because this is per ballot.
Right.
So I didn't want to say per, yeah, anyway.
Right.
One committee member will call out the valid selections from the original ballot, while another committee member will mark the duplicate ballot with the valid selections.
So we should change that to panel.
Yep. Great. The panel must vote on whether to accept the duplicated ballot as a valid and accurate representation of the original. If the vote passes, the ballot must be marked approved with red ink. If the vote fails, the duplicate must be altered or spoiled and restarted until the vote passes. Any spoiled duplicates must be marked spoiled with red ink and kept alongside any originals.
Dan, you still have the word committee in the preceding paragraph there in the second line.
Good call. Thank you. Finally, after all applicable ballots have been duplicated, any ballots marked orig or spoiled must be placed in a marked envelope for storage. Any ballots marked approved must be counted according to the usual process.
So
So you should put something about these are going to go through the tabulator.
Yes. However, because our language is, no, I guess Counted, yeah, how should I phrase that?
Yeah, because we're remarking them so that we can feed them in through the tabulator. That's the goal.
Yep.
That
was my, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
My question was, will the red ink interfere with the tabulator? Okay,
No, that's why it has to be red.
okay.
Also, because we're not, sorry, actually, I should clarify here, or maybe we should clarify here, that the markings on the duplicate ballot in the bubbles are not red. They are normal black ink bubbles. But marks elsewhere on the ballot are not going to interfere with that, with it being readable. So.
Right.
So how should I change the wording here? Any ballots marked approved must be
Will be
counted.
processed through the tabulator, you know.
Or just like, yeah, must be, wow, type.
Will be. I don't know if I like
Shall
them.
be. This is an opportunity to use shall if ever.
No, we're not using shall. We had that whole conversation about shalls and how they're out of style. And they're legally
doesn't mean they're not useful,
dubious.
Dan. I'm out of style and I'm still useful.
Those will be processed through
The vote tabulator, the voting equipment. Yeah.
In the normal manner?
Yep.
I don't know if that's necessary, but because it's not normal in the sense that we're going to have a tabulator there specifically to do it.
Yeah, you probably buttoned it up right there. That's good.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about these? Does this, I mean,
No complaints.
no complaints.
I think you did great, Dan.
Cool.
I do think maybe you do need to add something about the actual marking will be, I mean, these are just general guidelines. We're going to, change things up as being, I mean, I'll know, the clerk will know that they have to be marked in blank.
Yeah, but this isn't a bad thing to add, and it's really
Yeah, I think that's good enough.
Otherwise,
The
we'll mark
official
the duplicate
Sharpie.
ballot,
Right.
The
with
Sharpie
the
of
valid
office.
selections with.
I mean, there's no, that probably doesn't have to be said. This is just general because we'll make our own, adjustments.
Using black ink. That way you don't use with right twice in a row.
Good looking out.
It could be blue though too, so
Okay.
using yeah,
Non-red ink.
Use it
not
right.
red ink. There you go.
Why don't you just say black or blue?
Yeah. So, a very strange a thing like this about that. We had the day after the training, Michelle did another training with all the clerks. And there's a very good possibility that there will be changes to the whole voting systems all over the United States. New guidelines that'll come up. Jeff has told me that our machines will be good for 10 years, but part of me, I hope that we don't make really specific references that will be, I guess that it'll just have to be changed if we get totally different machinery.
Well, we've tried to keep this ordinance as machinery agnostic. Done a good job with that. So.
Yeah. Just take out the blue ink. No, we're not ever going to use just black ink. Yeah.
One other thing too, at the beginning of C, you have a panel consisting of 3 election judges. I think 3 should be a word.
3, yeah. Anything under 10.
Yeah.
That's good. I kind of think maybe these should be spelled out.
Yeah, I could even get a stamp, probably have just some rubber stamps.
I had an idea that it might be nice to have a whole stamp that kind of, it gave a place for the serial number to be written in, and it's just kind of, you just, and it's easy.
I mean, chances are they're probably, right now we we don't really, sometimes we can go a whole election with with nothing in the hand count compartment. I think especially the first election, we may have some, but there might not be too many of these.
I have mixed predictions about that just because absentee ballot was so pervasive during COVID.
Yeah, if by mail ballot becomes a permanent thing, then that's like, that's what this thing that I read, they said, that's exactly what they said.
There'll be certainly more hand counts.
It says here, it is safe to say that more remote voting will result in more overall usage of ballot duplication solutions to count these ballots.
Yeah.
Yep. Because many of the ballots may fall into the problem areas described above and cannot be read by the tabulation equipment. So, I mean, if it ends up that we're just doing absentees and there aren't that many, then, we might not have that many.
Yep.
Barbara, in your clerk's meeting or training when they were saying that things might change, was that due to security changes?
Yep.
Okay.
On the federal level. I mean, but, who knows? It's who knows? I mean, I think they would have to provide money because I mean, we are all, they actually at our training, they brought an updated version of our ICP.
Oh, yeah.
So they're actually going into a second phase of the same kind of equipment that we have, and people are buying them now. I mean, they're going to buy brand new equipment. So I don't know.
The ICP2s were nice. They were faster and they
were
had a
faster.
color screen.
Yep.
But they were, I mean, overall it looks exactly the same.
It
did.
But they were noticeably faster, which
The speed is compelling.
yeah, because ours are there. It's going to be very slow, and people are going to have to be, prepared for that.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So any other comments or thoughts about this section?
No, you always do a good job with the technical language.
Yeah, I like it. Good job, Dan.
Cool.
I am grateful for you doing that.
I want to
did
have this on
once
all.
write a technical book, and I'm not going to talk about what it was about in public. But if any of you are curious,
Hey.
I would be happy to tell you about it.
Is this in it?
No, this is not. That has nothing to do with voting. It has to do with software and computer stuff. But I just I'm slightly embarrassed about the content of it.
Okay, we don't have to embarrass you.
No, it's cool.
We
I
can
don't
just
mind
imagine, though.
it. Exactly.
Yeah,
now,
you're
it's
probably making
way
this
worse.
way worse.
It's probably not as
I
bad as
assure
you
you.
think about it.
Whatever's in my head is definitely worse than what it was.
Right.
Same.
My work
So
is
very
done.
same.
Here we are.
I'm so happy about that.
It's a good thing we have a long-standing good opinion of you, Dan.
Good. And I have an ungoogleable name. All right. So, all right. Well, let's move on to resolution of write-in votes. So this is a new section 6. This one is even slightly more general than the last one. A, the purpose of the write-in resolution process is to ensure that any valid write-in votes are accurately tabulated for the intended person, and that any any invalid write-in votes are processed so they do not interfere with any other valid selections on the ballot.
Should we say candidate instead of person?
I think if you're a write-in, you're not a candidate,
You're
are
not
you?
a candidate,
No,
necessarily.
Well, then why are we calling them write-in candidates?
write-in votes.
All right.
We're not calling them write-in candidates. We're
Yeah.
calling them
Okay.
write-in.
I'm not sure I like the word invalid write-in votes because
Oh, right.
they're written in there. It doesn't mean they're invalid. They can write for
Right.
Mickey Mouse still.
What do we want to call? What do we call that?
I'd just take it out and any write-in votes are processed so they not.
I guess that would apply to the valid too, huh?
Yeah. Right.
Would it make sense to just put a little asterisk at the bottom and define what you mean by valid and invalid? Because I mean, Mickey Mouse isn't valid because there is no Mickey Mouse who lives, right?
In Hampton, who's a registered voter, exactly. Like, Yeah. So, I mean, Michelle sort of clarified at the training that I'm going to use the words in our meeting now because I don't have a better word, but a valid write-in is for a registered voter, and an invalid is for a not registered voter. And so because Mickey Mouse is not a registered voter, it's not a valid write-in. If there were a person named Mickey Mouse who was a registered voter in Easthampton, that would be a valid write-in.
Michael Mouse of Strong Street is getting upset at you right now.
No, I'm saying that's totally valid. They're good. Hold on, I have to plug my laptop in. So that was my thinking behind valid and invalid. But I don't know if that language is great or if we should even get into that.
So I know I'm brand new to this committee and I promised myself I was going to not speak a lot. So I'm trying to do that. But I think as
much as you like.
You can say that, Dan. But I think as long as it's defined somewhere, then it's okay to use that language, right? So maybe
a definition section.
Yeah,
do we have anything in definitions? Or
Jackie, did you mean define somewhere in the ordinance or just define somewhere in law?
Either or.
Whatever makes sense. I don't know how exactly that would work, but.
So another thing that Michelle brought up is that, it could be that we ahead of time set a deadline for if somebody wants to run a write-in campaign, they have to notify, my office,
yep,
like at least 2 days before the election so that, that we can be watching for them and we can go ahead and be ready for it. And then there was also the thing, Dan, what about the whole thing of write-ins is if the number of write-ins as a total was not enough to make, where are we putting that? Are we dealing with that too?
I don't think so because we have to resolve write-ins anyway, as in we have to resolve any of the Mickey Mouses as not
right. They're
valid.
Yeah.
So this process, it's not like this gets us off the hook for doing the process entirely if we don't get 10 write-ins, because we still have to do it, because we still have to go in and say, no, this Mickey Mouse is not a valid write-in. So I think we should, in fact, just go and resolve all of them. And then the software just does what it does.
Right. The way we were doing it at the training.
Yeah.
Yep.
Although what we were doing at the training, we were using the adjudication module to do things besides just resolve write-ins. And that is something we're probably not going to have to do. Again, I did some follow-up with Jeff regarding that, but like we're not going to have to go in and, remove an overvote and bump the other ones up because the tabulator is going to do that on its own. So we were doing some extra adjudication.
Yeah, I mean, what was happening there is that we had a lot of the write-in bubbles just fill in to test it. So we had to go and just, discard those, not count them.
Right. So I'm happy here to not talk about valid or invalid. The purpose of write-in resolution is to ensure that any write-in votes are accurately tabulated for the intended person and that any write-in votes are processed. And that. Why
don't you just stop after person?
Well, because if they say nobody or if they say Donald Duck and that write-in votes are processed so they do not interfere with. I don't know. Maybe you're right.
Sentence. Yeah.
Maybe you're right.
You could change intended person to accurately tabulated for the voter's intent. Maybe that way you cover a lot more.
Could you say declared write-ins? Previously declared write-ins. I guess you can't say that.
Ew. I mean, it's considered good practice, right, to declare that you're a write-in, but is it actually required?
It is not. It is, well, but some jurisdictions make it required. We actually had earlier, in the very early meetings of this committee, we had some discussion about a qualified write-in. Oh, maybe that's the word, qualified versus unqualified. We could use those words if we decide we have to.
Then you're going to have to put something in there about how you become a qualified write-in.
Right.
So,
I just want to.
Yeah.
And then Michelle did say that could be done. You could say, I mean, at least 2 days before the election, if you intend to run a write-in campaign, you need to notify the clerk in writing.
Right.
Is that within the scope of this, though? I mean, this is the ranked choice voting ordinance, not all voting.
No, I'm inclined to avoid that. If the city decides that we want to limit write-ins to a declared write-in at following a certain process, I think that's fine, but I do think it's outside the scope of.
Well, it just really helps, us to be able to be aware of, to watch for names and things.
That may be the case, but I don't think it's our business.
I just think that another thing if we wanted to do something like that, the council would likely have some thoughts on it, and they don't know we're talking about it right now, and a bigger conversation than this. And given just sort of my quick census of how various councilors would react to that, I think that the wisest thing to do would be to assume a process that assumes that doesn't happen.
Okay.
There's a number of my colleagues who would sort of view that with some suspicion.
Well, and you brought up during our training a good point too, which is what if it's 2 days before an election and a candidate dies? You want people to be able to mobilize and have the freedom to mobilize to write someone. It's not likely at all, but
Well, then why don't we just leave it like it is? Because that's pretty clear, I think.
Yeah, I'm happy with this.
Okay.
If everyone else is. The write-in resolution process must be completed after the ballot duplication process and after any resulting duplicate ballots have been successfully read by the voting equipment.
Yep, take that out.
It's just been read by the voting equipment. Write-in resolution must be performed by the city clerk or by a person or persons as authorized and supervised by the city clerk or their assistants. That's just by the city clerk. Is this good language? A person or persons? I don't know how to write that. By someone.
By
designees of the city clerk.
Or
I don't think we need to. I think it's fine. Person or person unknown.
By someone designated by the city clerk.
or by a designee of the city, or by the city clerk or designee.
Or their designee.
Or their designee.
That's the language I've seen in other places.
Yeah.
Is designee possible to be plural, or does it have to be designees? Just out of curiosity.
Well, it's only going to be one person at a time. I only had it be plural if it's like multiple people take turns doing this or something, but there'll only be one person at a time. So presumably that designee could be changed around or something.
I'm not sure about D because, you know, if we're doing this in, say, you know, downstairs in the kitchen, because there's, you know, I'm probably not going to have any, I'm not going to have a TV thing like we had upstairs or.
This needs to be public though.
Yeah, but.
Okay, so here I think reasonable steps must be taken to ensure that the process is transparent. Get rid of the whole middle.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, you guys moved on and I hadn't.
I mean, you know, we do this at the polls all the time anyway. It's just, it's in the public. I mean, you know, one person reads, one person writes. I mean, I don't think it's really going to be any different than that. So.
But that it's transparent and open to the public, maybe?
You just say is open to the public.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Just
Because, I mean, that's really all it is. I mean, is open to the public.
Boom.
If software, well,
oh yeah, because that I was thinking like a screen. So like the ballot duplication doesn't involve software, so it's just people sitting around, and so if there's any public, they can see what's happening. But
Right.
this, I figured, this is happening on a laptop, so.
it may be, or maybe we'll decide to do it on paper if there aren't that many.
Right, right.
You know, it doesn't you do say if software, but
Yeah.
there could be a chance that we just look through the tape and just, you know, do it from there. You know, that ballot image.
Maybe this whole thing is not needed at all.
Yeah. all right.
Because up
Yeah.
here, it said,
Because it's part of
the
the,
write-in resolution process must be open to the public.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Let's not.
So
Yeah.
it's a public
Fine.
process.
Onward.
yep.
That's it.
All right, let's do it again.
All right. Any thoughts about both of these sections?
They sound good.
So far, so good.
Well, so far, so good. So far is the end. We're done.
Well then,
Good.
So far, so good, so long.
So, yeah. So what else does this ordinance need in it, guys, before it becomes an ordinance? We've had our training day. Is this done?
Was there anything, Dan, that you can think of that, you know this better than anybody, that it appeared like the machine would conflict with what we've written? I mean, I'm sure you've gone through that.
No,
Okay,
no.
okay.
the
Just
only
saying.
thing that comes to my mind is, before we put it forward, I'd like to get some resolution on this skipped rankings thing.
Yes.
Hmm.
Uh,
From the document that you sent us with the things you learned from the training.
this thing. Nope.
No,
This thing.
that thing.
Dun, 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 dun. The
Oh,
skipped rankings thing. You mean that sorry. So this one, the skipped rankings may present a new issue.
Yeah.
But that isn't ordinance related, because that is purely related to, it's not tabulation related. It's only
setting.
related to,
Oh, it's about
does
prompting.
it prompt you or not
Right.
when you feed it in? So I think that's outside the scope of the ordinance. I think that,
You don't think that the resolution of that might lead us to consider our current language in the ordinance on skip ranking differently in any way?
I see what you're saying. We could go, well, this was a conversation that we had a little bit with Michelle, because, yeah, I guess it was Michelle, or it was Jeff, because, no, this was on our call with Cambridge. Because they do not do the skipped rankings thing. They allow skipped rankings.
Yeah, of course, theirs is a lot different than, I mean, what they do is, oh my God, you should see their ballot.
Oh yeah, because they'll have 20 people on it and all that. But if someone ranks 1, 2, 3, 15 on a Cambridge ballot, that is interpreted as 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this committee had a long discussion about this issue, and where we came down on it previously was the danger of elevating somebody's hate rank
Yep.
was greater than the disenfranchisement of counting somebody's post-skipped rankings.
Mm-hmm.
Which I still feel pretty comfortable about. I still feel good.
I still think I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think our conversation around that was good, and I remember going into it being like, well, shouldn't we? But then we talked it out, and I think we kind of came around to our position now.
Because there is a natural inclination to if you really dislike somebody, to rank them last.
Yep.
And to not rank everyone in between. And I think everyone on the committee agreed too that if we could distinguish this person skipped 2 rankings, don't count it, but if they just skipped 1, it's probably an accident and we can skip over that. But the software can't do that. That's not an option at the moment. So it's one or the other. So I think we can still I think we can still proceed with this. It's just a matter of the ballot of the tabulator setting as to whether it's going to prompt or not. And I think it's okay. Let's imagine the worst case here, right? The worst case is that the tabulator does not prompt on skipped rankings. Like 1, 2, 3, 5. It just takes that as is. I'm okay with that. That's not the end of the world.
Yeah, because our settings are gonna. Wait a minute. No, wait. It can't.
It wouldn't. This is the worst case. It wouldn't prompt,
Right.
but it would still tabulate fine, and it would tabulate as 1, 2, 3, exhausted.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought.
And this is the worst case. What we want is that for that to get prompted and to say, hey, you got a skipped ranking. Do you want to fix it? Do you want to move that 5 up to a 4? Do you want to add a 4? Do you want to spoil your ballot? Let's make this count so that your vote is as complete as it can be. But in the worst case, we wouldn't be able to do that. And the reason we wouldn't be able to do that is because it would then prompt. That would mean that we would also have to prompt for someone just as 1, and it says, hey, you skipped 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's like, no, we absolutely don't want to prompt for every single one of those. So, that's the worst case I can live with.
Yeah, and I think too, we have to think that, we're not going to end up with like Cambridge, like 15 people.
No.
If we get 4 people running for mayor, that's going to be a lot. So, it might not be as big a deal as we think it might be, but. Down the road, if you go into the multiple, doing it for council or school committee, it could be different. But right now, I don't really see it being I just don't want that machine to have to, every time somebody only ranks the first person or 2 out of 3, that it kicks it back.
Well, and that's not even an option.
Yeah.
We're not setting them up to do that because that will be a nightmare for
everyone,
people voting and all the poll workers.
Yeah. So Tom, at what point do you think that this should go to the city attorney for review?
I think that now is fine, actually, at this point.
Okay.
If everyone else is comfortable with that, I would bounce it over, and then I would probably not vote on it tonight. I would just send it to the city attorney because he may have substantial edits that we might have to address before sending it to council. But this to me looks like this looks actually a lot better than a lot of the ranked choice voting ordinances I've seen.
Oh yeah.
And it's not 40 pages long, like the one in Minnesota.
Yeah, no, this is 5 pages. 5 pages.
I do have one question or suggestion that maybe we covered and I'm just not remembering. But do we have any sort of escape clause, like something changes that is incompatible with this ordinance? Maybe we should give the clerk the temporary power to make a decision while a new committee or city council handles some new incompatibility. I can't think of one, but that doesn't mean it won't happen.
Probably not a bad idea. In some wording, maybe like at the very.
What kind of thing are you imagining, though?
Don't know. Maybe.
Because the worst case is
what if
have no software and no machines, right?
Yes, yeah. So say we have like a solar flare that knocks power out for a month. We still want to have an election, right? So we'd still have to do everything on paper, unless, likely there'll be an state of emergency. But let's just play with this scenario.
Yeah. No, but there's nothing in this ordinance that can't be done with just paper.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay.
maybe there doesn't exist a situation. Maybe we did cover it all.
I mean, I can imagine plenty of those situations, but a lot of those also don't involve an ordinance being important.
Right. It would just be an emergency.
It's like we're back in charter review, catastrophizing.
Okay, I say don't worry about that, that if something happens, we just have to deal with it,
Yeah.
you know.
And we'll have a lawyer. I mean, we'll have a lawyer and we'll have the clerk and we'll have everyone there.
You can't really account for everything, you know, it's like you just,
So
you know, like any election, if things happen, you just deal with it.
Okay. So
And
that's
we have
fair.
courts. We have
I mean,
courts.
if the software, if we end up with totally different machines that maybe are just touch screen, not optical, you know, then we'd have to just, whoever is around at that time will have to, you know, look at this and see if there's adjustments that need to be made.
If somebody comes up with just touchscreen voting in my precinct, I'm gonna pitchfork time. I hate those things.
Yeah.
So-
I know, I hope we never see that. I like the optical
They
scan.
brought a demo of the new ICP or
Oh, high-speed scanners, ooh.
and the high-speed scanner, but they also brought one that's this
Oh.
big vertical touch screen device.
To replace the AutoMark handicap voting equipment, they had a touch screen. Now, the
Right.
problem, Dan, with that, even though it was wonderful, it doesn't work with the ES&S machine.
Right.
So, and the state, they need to have something that needs to work with everything.
Oh, I'm not saying that that's even on our radar, other than
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
futuristic sci-fi radar of, you know,
Right.
the state buys these for all the cities, and all of a sudden we have
Right.
touch screen things. But even that thing, it plugs into a printer and it prints out a ballot,
Right.
and that ballot gets scanned by
Right.
one of our ICP.
Yeah, so everybody should know that our training that we had, LHS brought that touchscreen replacement for the AutoMark that prints the ballot on demand. And they also brought a high-speed ballot scanner that for like all of those by mail ballots that we had this year, you could just take those and put them in and process them through like super fast.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it would cost, Tom, looking ahead down the road, there's like $25,000.
$25,000, yep.
But if
25,000.
if by mail ballots come to be a thing that's going to happen like for every, you know, big election,
Yeah.
to be able to run through those ballots that quickly rather than take a week.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, totally.
I think if they approve that, I mean, I think we're all going to be looking at it.
Let me just pitch
LHS
one.
said that there's a lease opportunity on that too, you know.
Especially when you see how much, you know, these machines are really slow. They're really slow.
Let me make.
And I have
one
to
more
imagine
pitch.
that's, sorry, what's that, Chris?
Go ahead, Chris.
Let me just make one more pitch for the escape clause. What if the state or the feds make some sort of security procedure that is slightly out of line with what we've done here? Like, they say you're not allowed to write on ballots. So that would mess up our dupe and.
But that has to be like, I don't know.
But just say something like that. Then we have to have the clerk has to be empowered to not have our whole election be screwed up, right? But what let me just finish what you're saying, Barb, is that if that does happen, we just handle it and do what we can, right? Is that what you're saying would?
So let me clarify right now that currently at an election, if something happens to our machines and we have to put them in through the back, we're not supposed to touch those ballots. The ballot duplication process that we talked about tonight is not something we can do at any other election except for our election.
Correct.
I wish it was, and I would love to see it. But right now, we can't remark ballots and scan them through at any other election except for this. And Michelle from elections, she said it was totally fine for us to do it at our election, but
Right.
I mean,
Not state ones.
it's not something that we can do on the state level because once we can't like remark a ballot.
Right, but that's just an example, like what if something comes up security that we just didn't think about? Like, what happens? Like,
Well, the question here is, do we need a clause in this, or is that clause sort of assumed by default in a case of a city ordinance?
I mean, I'm sure that kind of thing happens all the time where laws are superseded by greater authorities.
Would you be able to pick up the phone and call the Secretary of State's office, Barbara, and say, we have a discrepancy between this new policy and our ordinance? What do I do? And would that give?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially around elections, they have hotlines, and they're.
Oh yeah, we could call. I could call them any. We can call the elections division on anything.
Okay, so maybe it's moot.
What if when we send it to the solicitor, we just make a note that, like, does this need any sort of like severability or bailout clause or anything like that in your opinion?
It's a good idea.
Perfect.
Cool. I'm down with that. Yep, I like that. Approve this guy. Okay. Then I am going to get this out as a PDF, and I will forward it to Tom. Are you comfortable forwarding this to our city solicitor? I don't have their contact info.
I think I would forward it to Peg, who would send it along, but I can do that, yes.
Yeah.
I have Peg's email, so I can do that.
Yeah, you're the chair, so why don't you forward that to Peg?
Yeah.
Peg will forward it along.
Yeah, and Dan, make sure you send it to me too.
I will. I'll copy you.
I'm just going to put copy and paste into the minutes.
Yep. Perfect. Okay. The one other thing that I'll go over before we move on is just looking at Jeff's follow-up here, which is now on my screen. And I'm not going to, I think we can kind of, what happened to that? There we go. We can kind of skim this, but these were my concerns after our training stuff. Duplicate rank versus inconsistent rank is, I mentioned that before, it's still something that we're like, huh? But it doesn't really matter because they're kind of both duplicates. Write-in with overvotes, I asked about. Once you reject the write-in and make it non-qualified, it'll give the rank, it'll basically bump up, which is what we want it to do. Skipped rankings. Again, a lot of these questions were like, because we were adjudicating things using the adjudication module that were not write-ins, and we were like manually like, oh, this person, you know, overvoted, you know, or did a duplicate ranking here, so we're deleting this one, and we're basically he's confirming that the tabulation software is going to do this, and we don't need to adjudicate it ourselves. Duplicate rankings, ranks need to move up. I don't believe so. And then here at the bottom, this kind of goes to what we were talking about before. Skipped ranking is used for when we're skipped ranks. The unused rank setting is used when a voter stops ranking. So this should eliminate your concern about the warning being triggered if a voter stops ranking. So again, I'll believe it when I see it, but Jeff seems to think that this resolves that particular prompt issue. All right, I'm going to stop the screen share. How do I do that? Red? All right. Any new business?
Dan, I think you got this too, but I just wanted to mention that Jeff had sat down and did some number budget figuring.
Yeah. Yep.
What the cost comparison is looking like, and I hope that I
Let me put this up on the screen.
Okay. Yeah, I had an idea of where the big increases were going to be, and I hope that I put enough in.
All right, can everyone see this?
Yep. One thing I want to say is that, you know, our ballot in November 2019 was long, and it was double-sided. Well, actually, it was the same as the test, so that doesn't count. Yeah, the big thing is the coding's going to be double the cost. So hopefully I've accounted for that.
We do have the capabilities, at least software-wise, to do it in-house, so to speak.
Oh, no.
If you want
to do that.
No, I'm with you on that. I'm like, let LHS do the.
No, they're going to do that for us.
But before it was something that we did not have the option, and now.
Well, but you got to do the cards, and no, I mean, no.
I know it's a lot.
I have a hard no to that.
I understood. I'm not pushing.
Okay.
No pushback against that. I'm just saying that technically in terms of the software,
we're not going to do that. But when I was figuring my election, I did have some preliminary numbers on my budget, and I'm pretty sure that it will be okay.
Yeah, the printing is basically the same.
Yeah.
The same except
everything's similar. So the only real difference is the coding, and I think it's because it's not just one oval, it's multiple ovals.
Yeah.
And it all depends on how many candidates and things like that there are too. So
yeah.
And
how many candidates did you have in the RCV test?
I think six for mayor, and
okay, that's not bad.
well,
Maybe it'll be less.
It was 5, and then you have to have a write-in space.
5 and a write-in line, yeah.
Yeah. And then actually when he did it, he forgot one of the rankings. So you have to have 6. You would have to have the same number of rankings as you have for candidates. So say we have, 2 people run for mayor, there's only going to be 3 rankings.
Right.
And probably good chance there might not be every ranked choice voting in every single district race. So,
Well, how many, just out of curiosity, how many did you have in each precinct on the test?
Was it 4?
4, I think. Yeah.
3 or 4.
Yeah, so this coding might go down significantly. That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't say that this coding is per candidate. It could just be because it's RCV period, it goes up.
I think he took what we did last time and then he coded it like they would code it, so pretending like this was a real bill that I was getting based on, the number of ballots we got last time and the difference in what needed to be coded. So.
Chris, do you want a hard answer from Jeff on that?
No. I'm just curious, is it going to be 1473 or is it going to be somewhere between 759? It's
right.
No.
Yeah, it all depends on how many candidates there are. I mean, and then they still have to code for the school committee and the council too. So,
right.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to have any questions this year. I haven't heard of anything, so.
You want me to throw something on just to keep things interesting?
Oh yeah. Do it.
I'll think of something.
No.
All right. So the follow-up for tonight's meeting is the sending this to Peg. Oh yeah, one more thing. So we had this document that we wanted to kind of punt on until after the training. I think we were all pretty happy about it, but we wanted to return to it after the training. So this is the sort of software tabulation transparency notice that would just go on the wall, polling place on the wall and on the website. Hello, Kitty.
Oh, it's Marceline.
So I just didn't want this to sort of get forgotten about until it was too late or something. But do we want to finalize this? Do we want to kind of wait and finalize it along with the ordinance when we do that? What do you guys think?
Let's make this the first thing we do after the ordinance is done.
Okay.
As we transition into education mode.
Yep. I think that's a good idea.
I think that those of you who attended the training will have the most insight to it, obviously, because that was the information we were waiting on. So.
Oh, I'm already seeing here that the resolved, we might have to update that a little bit to deal with our resolution process. But okay, I like that idea, Tom. Let's pick a next meeting. It looks like May 20th might be good.
Well, Tom, what do you think the turnaround is on the solicitor?
It's always difficult to say. I mean, I guess if we get to the date and we're still waiting on the solicitor, we can just start working on education material.
Okay. You said May 20th, Dan?
Look, how does that work for people?
Well, I should probably say it's my anniversary, but
Oh, happy anniversary.
Happy
what's the
anniversary.
big deal on that? You know, I've had council meetings on that night.
Is it an even year or ending in a 5?
No, it's not. 21.
Well,
Nice.
Ooh, on blackjack anniversary.
I mean, I could probably move it to a different.
Oh, no, I'm just kidding. It's fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
All right, so let's say 6 o'clock, Thursday, May 20th.
Okay.
Sounds good.
And that's all I got, if no one has anything else.
But Dan, thank you. You're a superhero. You did a good job.
Cool, thank you.
You usually, or well, not usually, you always do. Never seen a subpar effort.
There's chats in here. Oh, panel. Oh, you guys did comments and I didn't even see them because this committee has never used the little chat before, but there it is. Love it. All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you all, guys.
Good.
Have a-
Everyone, thank you.
Enjoy the snow tomorrow or tonight or whatever.
Please don't say those
yeah.
words.
Well, no, it's happening. It's not